Okay, look. First topic. Are open world games too long? Here's what happened. So I'm playing Indiana Jones in the Great Circle, which is absolutely 100% my, without question, is my game of the year. It is a delightful, just joy, this thing. And I loved it. I finished it. I actually want to go back and play more of it, even though I've completed the main quest. There's lots of 100%ing, or not lots, there's 100%, but there's lots of things that you can do that I've kind of pushed off to the side. But as much as I loved it and just think it's great, man. I mean, I love to hear that Lucas Games is suggesting that, hey, this is done well enough. We want more of these, or at least that's kind of the rumor that we're getting from one of the Lucas people. It's so good. It is so, so good. And I hope it really does well coming to PS5 and being on Game Pass. I hope a lot of people get to experience it. It is not Uncharted. It is not Tomb Raider. It is not balls to the wall action. And so I think that's going to throw some people that are expecting like a machine games gun shoot 'em up. But it's so good. And anyway, though, I'm playing it and I feel like it's a little long. I feel like I get about 80% in and I'm like, oh my God, there's this whole other section. And I'm like, come on, man, how long is this thing going to go on? I loved it. I had no issues with it other than it was just too long. So I tweeted out and people were just like, you're a fucking idiot, man. It's only 14 hours long. And, you know, what's the matter with you? And blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, you know what? It's too fucking long. It's bloated. But then I got to thinking, right? Here's what I got to thinking. I have this problem, and I don't think it's a me problem. I think it's a game design problem. And I think it needs to be solved. But I want to bring that up as our first topic because I'm curious about, you know, if you agree. Not so much as Indiana Jones too long or not. You got to play it and your mileage will vary. But the problem is your mileage will vary depending on how you play Indiana Jones and the Great Circle or any of these open world games. Not Concord, Starfield is another great example. Starfield is one of my favorite games of all time and my favorite narrative video game ever, probably. I gotta think I have to reorder, but it's delightful. But I played it in a specific way. I spent about 90% of my playtime first playthrough was following the core mission. And yeah, I deviated here and there, but the core mission was excellent and I loved it. But a lot of people said, oh my God, I was so bored. I quit after an hour, 3 hours, 5 hours. What do you like about this game, Jaffe? Right? Well, that's a game where right from the get-go, they say, hey, the world is your fucking oyster. Go out, have a great time, do whatever the fuck you want. And hey, there's this mission, there's this main path if you're interested, but we don't really care what you do, right? And it becomes overwhelming, especially if you fly to a planet that happens to have nothing interesting on it, which is most of the planets, unless you're choring for, you know, environmental aspects that you can use to build a base or mining or crafting or whatever. And you're not going to be doing that right away. You're not going to care about that right away. But that game got really hurt by the fact that it was so much freedom right at the beginning. Another game, you know, and this is how I deal with most open world games, right? And Indie is not full open world, but it's little open worlds linearly linked together. But this, I'm going to bring this up. This is a map of Marvel's, I think this is Spider-Man 2 is what this is. So right here is the map from Spider-Man 2, the whole map. Once you open everything up, the burrows and whatnot. So I never finished Spider-Man 1 and I never finished Spider-Man 2, but I loved them both. And I loved Miles Morales, but I don't think I've ever finished that one either. I may have finished that one. But the problem for me in these games is whether they Ubisoft it or not, where they put these little points and little dots and shit where it's like, hey, collect these, collect all the Spider-Man history icons, collect all of the scientific experiments, whatever, you know what I'm saying? All these games do this. I will get kind of caught up in doing that. Right. And by the time I've completed enough of that to feel like I've either done it all or I have done it all, I'm starting to I get the gist of the game. I'm ready to move on to something else. And people say, well, that's a you problem, Jaffe. That's your fault. You don't have to play the game that way. And this is where I take issue with a lot of gamers, and I suggest it is a game design issue, is that if your job is to entertain, I think you are abdicating responsibility when you basically say, it's kind of the equivalent of giving somebody a DVD with all the chapters and going, hey, watch it in any order you want. You can do that. I mean, nobody does that, but in games, because it's so, it makes sense to just do what you want when you want to do it, you end up having an experience that isn't optimal, at least first time through. And I'm sorry, I don't think that needs to go on the user. I don't think that's my job to find the fun. I think that's the developer's job to go, we know what's best. That's our job. That's why we get paid a lot of money. We're going to take you on a great journey. Okay. And the other thing that's problematic about it is when you say, a lot of people say, well, Jaffe, just stick to the core path. Stick to the golden path. They make it clear what that is. Just follow the story missions. Forget my desire to go here, there, and the other. A lot of these games, like take, what's one that comes up a lot? Even just take Dragon Age if you haven't played Dragon Age, right? I was online talking about Dragon Age yesterday, and people were saying, oh, it's really fucking hard. And then somebody said, it wasn't hard to me. And they said, but I did a lot of the side quests in Dragon Age. And so in doing that, I level up my characters a lot and get a lot of good gear. And so the ending boss or the Hydra boss and stuff was not that big of a deal, but it's a big deal for a lot of people that pretty much follow the main path. Well, now the developer's not only saying to the player, find the fun yourself. Hopefully the path you randomly pick through this massive environment is going to be good enough for you. But on top of that, if you don't go the proper path, you could find yourself towards the end of the game or in a situation that you're not equipped for because you haven't chosen to go out and build up your character, even though you had no idea what was coming down the line in 20 minutes or 20 hours or whatever it is. And that's another problem with it. So here's my proposal, and then I'm going to go to the chat, and I want to see what you guys think about this. This is my proposal. I'm not saying it should be a design law. Everybody has to do this. But if I was going to make an open world game, or if you were going to play an open world game, what do you think about this proposal? Okay, so if we go back to this map here, this is the Spider-Man map, okay? When you first come into Spider-Man 2, there is a golden path, and the golden path is this. Now, it's kind of hard to see what it is, but it basically starts here, and the developers give you, depending on the section, they'll give you some branching. You got to do both. So you start here, you've got semi-open world. You're not just following like a trough. You still have some open spaces to swing around and explore, but it's moving you, and then it gets really open here, and then there's a dead end here, but you can go explore if you want and get some goodies and blah, 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 and then it backtracks here. But fundamentally, it's moving you through the map to get you to the end. And then when you get to the end, it doesn't present as New Game Plus. There is something in the narrative that then says, okay, there's this other, it's not going to be as advanced, but in terms of cutscenes and all that, but there's this other story that now opens up, and as it opens up, you now have the full map, and you can do all your collecting and all that stuff. But you've gone through the golden path to begin with, and that has basically driven most people to the optimal experience that designers want. That is my proposal, and I want to know what you guys think. Let me go to the chat. Nathan says, I totally agree. The game mechanics ruin games. I felt this in Gears of War years ago. It's collectibles. They're outdated and don't make any sense. The devs make this great story, and then you stray away from it. Brett Moore has been a member. Thank you, buddy, for 34 months. He says, it's rare for a game to keep my attention from start to finish. Either my mood changes day to day, or I tend to always have my backlog in the back of my mind, pushing me to want to vary what I play. Yeah. And this is the thing. It's almost like we admit that it's a problem. We admit that it's frustrating, but we defend it. I'm not saying we all do. I certainly don't. I push back on it. But a lot of people seem to want to defend this idea where it's like, no, man, just you figure it out. Somebody said, where did it go? It says, I think most gamers, Eric says, understand the message. The side quest is not something supposed to be as good as the main. I think Witcher 3 is probably only one of the games where that is not true. It's not that the side quests aren't good, though. I enjoy it. I'm not doing it because I don't like it. I played the side quest in Spider-Man because I was having fun trying to find all the old Spider-Man lore. That engaged me for about 3 days. And then after 3 days, when I was completed that at 100%, I'm ready to go, okay, let me go back to the story. And I'm like, oh, I've already done a lot of this shit in terms of like I've fought already a lot. I've web swinged a lot. I've done science experiments a lot, puzzle solutions a lot. I've used the gadgets a lot. And so it's worn out its welcome when the game, from a story standpoint and from a momentum standpoint, needs me to be engaging with it. Johnny Graphic says, I think if the game has side quests, it's reasonable to assume that the player does a few of them. I think the problem is everybody's different, right? Why did I choose to follow the golden path in Starfield and have a great time? Well, because I read some reviews that said you should probably do this. But other people didn't read those reviews, and they got in the ship right at the beginning, just flew to a random planet and said, okay, this is boring. Let me fly to another random planet. Hey, this is boring. All right, let me go to another planet. This is a fuck it, uninstall. Because they didn't happen to get lucky and follow to a planet that was engaging. Let's see. Those are game design issues, says Mercury. They can be fixed by dynamic difficulty and level scaling and by things like gradually unlocking side content as you go through the main game. Yeah, but it's got to be a conscious choice. I mean, it really has to come down to the developer saying, this is a problem, right? Giving the player this much freedom is a real problem for pacing. And I don't know if that's a conversation. If I were to be making an open world game, I would certainly bring that and go, guys, we have to solve this because this is kind of shitty. But I don't know if this is something that the average open world developer talks about. It's not about which X says there are a lot more games in The Witcher 3 now that have good side quests. It's not that the side quests are bad. The side quests in Indiana Jones are fucking great. I don't even know, by the way, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there is a thing that presents as a side quest, I think, towards the end of Indiana Jones that I did because I was curious. Let's just say that if you've played it, the hint is blonde lady, okay? And I think that sets up a bunch of stuff, by the way. But anyway, I don't think you have to play that mission, right? But it was awesome. It's not that the side quests aren't good. It's just that fundamentally, when you're done with whatever they are, you've burned through your interest in the game. Okay. Do you ever find yourself replaying games? I do select a few, but no idea what makes them different, says Brett. Brett Moore this year with 2 games, maybe 3, but certainly Indiana Jones, I think I might replay. I'm going to tell you something that it's going to make me horrible. You're going to think I'm a total fucking con man, but I'm going to tell you something. And then we'll get back to the open world discussion. But Indiana Jones, I was thinking of replaying, and I know a lot of people shit on it, but I'm loving Dragon Age. I'm like, I saw Jojo D, who loves it too, saying he's playing it a second time. I might replay Dragon Age. And then I started thinking, you know what? Maybe I should buy these games, like physical, because it was the first time that I said, I would like to own these and have copies of these. And then I was like, you know what? I've been pushing against that for so long. Not against it, but it just didn't matter to me. And now finally, when I guess the world is moving away from physical, what's the point? Like if I was like, oh, I'll go buy a PS5 disc of Dragon Age today and Indiana Jones today for Xbox. And then I'm like, but A, what's the point? Because I'm not going to be able to play them forever unless I have them on digital. And B, I played both of those games, and one of the reasons I enjoyed them so much was I played them streaming on GeForce Now because I could have the best graphics without having to have a rig that gives me the best graphics. So I guess I'm a little too late to the party, but I might replay those. Absolutely, though. So no, I'm not going physical, no. So Fuzzy says you need to design the game and the story around being open world so the pacing makes sense. Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out what that means. I understand it as a statement, but fundamentally speaking, if you're trying to design Spider-Man 3 around being an open world so the narrative makes sense in the open world, you're still going to be giving the player a metric shit ton of choice. I mean, you could have the only thing you can do in this massive map might be go to here. And then you're basically saying, yeah, it's an open world, but there's nothing really to do unless you just follow the path. But I think that would feel really empty and strange. It's like, you're going to give me all of this to play around in, but the only thing I can do is I have to go to this one bank robbery that's happening because that's where Uncle Ben, the clone of Uncle Ben, gets killed. I don't know. I don't know about that. Frank has been a member for 48 months. Thank you, sir. He says, so you're telling me Jack Nicholson. Oh, I'm not reading that. I'm not reading that, Frank. I appreciate the super chat or the Diet Soda Soldier membership. Thank you, buddy. But I don't recommend anybody reading that. In fact, I'm going to remove it. Can you believe it? I'm removing your thing because you just spoiled a movie, man. You can't do that. But thank you, Frank. I appreciate it. Yeah, Tristan says the funny thing with these open world games is when the main quest is hurry Spider-Man or this thing will blow up, but then you can do side quests for the next 5 hours. Yep, absolutely, 100%. Morgan says if there's a Spider-Man 3, it better not be in New York. The map is boring. It is starting to get, you're not wrong. You're not wrong about that. Jaffe, have you played Mafia 2? It's an open world game, says Eric, that really funnels you the story. The new one will be similar. Mafia, the Old Country. I have not played any Mafia game. I'm waiting for the new one. So that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Yeah, Lawrence says my OCD kicks in when playing open world games and I feel compelled to tick off each icon. Currently playing Hogwarts Legacy at the moment and I just love being in the world, so it's not an issue. Right. But I mean, don't you think that is, I'm going to put a poll up and then we'll move on, but it really comes down to, don't you think it is a design issue? Whether there's two arguments I hear. One is my OCD kicks in. It's frustrating because the game wears out its welcome. Or, hey, fucking figure it out. They're giving you the freedom. You know where you can go to make your game better. That's a you problem, right? It really kind of comes down to it's either a design issue that needs to be solved or there is not a problem. It's already been solved. Just don't be a little fucking baby. I would like it to be solved because I think it's kind of bullshit that the player is being asked to find the fun. But we'll see. Let's put up a poll, then we'll move on to the next topic. But here we go. Start a poll. Should open world games have the core path forced until it's solved? All right, there's the poll. Yes or no? And again, every game, before you vote, I'm not saying it's got to be a rule in every game and no game can have an exception. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, should there basically be a general sense that most open world games go out of their way to say, we are going to force you into a great time and then you can find your fun later. And certainly games don't have to do that, but do you wish more games would do that is what I would say. Arathizel says that's not an open world game then. Yeah, it is. It's just that the full freedom of the open world doesn't unlock until you've completed the 12-hour journey, basically. So that's what I would say. Stellar Blade does it perfectly, says Johnny. It's so good you want to complete all the side content. Okay. Good, Jezebel. Good to hear. Okay. The downside is you can't have games like Red Dead 2 where the side missions are sometimes seamlessly integrated. Yeah, but if it's seamlessly integrated, then wouldn't that fundamentally be part of the main path? You can still have missions that branch. You can still have, it doesn't mean you're following a straight line, right? So if you look at your screen here, again, I made this too complicated, but if this is where you start, there might be in this little chunk before you open. So here's the beginning. You go here, here, here. You can go there, there, and here. Until you open this door, until it's not a door, but until you do what you need to do in this section, you may have to go back and play a couple of side quests. There's still freedom within this, but it's ushering you through to this section, basically. I guess you could call it semi-open world like God of War or Indiana Jones, but I guess the difference would be that it is Indiana Jones though says Indiana Jones gives you a much bigger section and you can still get distracted. That's why I think the game is too long. At least on first playthrough. So it would be more linear than that. I think the problem is that they used to teach you how to play the game during loading screens, and now we don't have those. Games need better onboarding, Fuzzy Tomato. I agree, but I don't think that relates to this. The open world meta needs to go away. It's so played out, says Jezebeli. Open level games are better than open world like old Resident Evil or Metal Gear. I would agree with that. I agree. Let's go open level games, at least that are meant to be single player. Like if you could open it up at the end, but it sounds like the majority of the chat doesn't agree. So you won't be playing my new game. That's fine. That's fine. As Rathizzle says, the absolute best parts of open world games is the freedom. Yeah, but the problem is after a while that wears off and you just get bored. At least I do. That's again, Indiana Jones too long. It's too long. But anyway, I've not played Mafia 2. Looking forward to the new one. Glad to hear. I don't want to just play a linear game. JB says just play a linear game. No, because A, they don't make a lot of them anymore, and B, as a designer or a one-time designer, what I'm asking is it's not that I'm fascinated how this is acceptable to you guys, right? I'm fascinated, like somebody earlier said, that this particular scenario where I rarely finish open world games or they're too long because I get distracted, blah, blah, blah. I don't think